So I'm optimistic. I don't think they will be successful, but we have to be alert. And the only way they can't be successful if we give it our attention and fight it as best as we can by spreading the information as wide as we can.
You're listening to the Corbett Report.
This is James Corbett, CorbettReport.com, joined today in Acapulco, Mexico, with Dan Dix of PressForTruth.ca and Luke Rudkowski of WeAreChange.org. Today we're going to be talking about something that affects all three of us. Dan, of course, in Canada, Luke in America, myself in Japan. That is the pressing dangers to internet freedom in legislation that has either just been passed or is being passed or wants to be passed in all three of these countries. We're going to start with Dan talking about what's happening in Canada. I know you've been covering this recently. What are the latest threats to internet freedom in Canada?
Well, the latest one that's threatening us right now is Bill C-51. This was actually introduced back in 2011, but prior to 2011, it was under the guise of trying to stop internet pornography and on children. So it was under that guise, but when that didn't work and didn't pass through, they switched up the game and switched it to Bill C-51. 3 years have passed. It's still not going to fly. So now that the Canadians are getting involved in fighting terrorism abroad, now we've brought this onto us. So this is why they're trying to pass this on now. Bill C-51, whisk it through in the face of all the current terrorism going on to restrict the rights of people such as us. This thing is going to restrict our abilities to be able to communicate with one another. It'll give the intelligence communities, the intelligence agencies, the ability to preemptively stop us from doing things if they suspect that we may be involved in some sort of terrorism activities. So this is detrimental for Canadians, so that it's incredibly important to stand up for this. As you said, this is not only happening in Canada, it's going on all over the world right now.
And, of course, playing the terror card in order to clamp down on freedom, no stranger to the U.S. situation, where Luke Rudkowski, of course, is reporting on the latest dangers in Congress regarding this type of legislation. What's going on there?
Well, of course, we know Congress tried to pass SOPA and PIPA. They failed, luckily, but they still try to throw their legislation in other bigger pieces of legislation. So it makes it virtually impossible to really get through everything. But Congress has not been yet successful in censoring the internet. But Obama, during his State of the Union, he said we have to protect our children from cyber terrorism. And what he's trying to pass is this new executive order on cyber legislation, cyber security, that will ultimately make it illegal to even view documents that are classified. So if you get shared documents, someone gives you and emails you documents just like the Snowden leaks or all these other documents that the government doesn't want you to see, that they don't officially leak themselves, which they do sometimes when it looks good in their favor. If you are a receiver of those documents, you face 10 years in jail and a $100,000 penalty. So Obama's trying to ram through these laws since Congress has failed, and he's doing it under the guise of protecting our children from cyber terrorism, which is obviously pieces of flying crap. So,
of course, and that sounds extremely familiar to those who are familiar with the Japanese law. It was just passed in last December, which also criminalizes the reception of any material that the government deems classified or secret by journalists. So for the first time, criminalizing real journalism in Japan, although there isn't much there anyway because of the club system that they have in place to basically limit any type of journalism that goes on there. But of course, we all know, unfortunately, all too well about the problems. The question is, what about the solutions? Luke, you bring up SOPA and PIPA, which of course was not successful in being passed a couple of years ago, but of course it's the war of attrition. They keep bringing it back. The question is this something that we're going to get blocked legislatively, or is there a more fundamental level at which we can be attacking this? Luke, your thoughts?
Well, one thing that we know is that the system, the powers that be, always take 2 steps forwards and 1 step back. This is their step back, but they're going to make 2 steps forwards. So we have to be aware of what's happening within our kind of legal political system and bring attention to it. Just this mere fact of other people being aware of this made sure that this bill would not pass. Our attention and what we focus on and what we want, it's a constant tug of war between the powers that be and the people who are supposedly represented by the government. So I've never been a fan of lobbying politicians. I've never been a fan of asking criminals for help with crime, because you're going to get more crime, and the government always finds, out of a problem, a solution that only works out better for them, which creates more problems. I believe in spreading attention. I believe in people innovating new technologies, new encryptions, new kind of outlets that kind of bypass the old system. So I'm really optimistic because we've seen so many people, whenever a government creates a roadblock, bam, they always create a different way around it. We've seen that in the Bitcoin community. We've seen that in the encryption community. We're learning every day about what's safe and what's not safe. So again, to me, empower yourself with knowledge. Don't seek answers from the criminals creating the problems, but seek answers from your community, your people, and all the innovators. And especially with all this advance in technology, the government is having a very hard time at creating all these laws to stop the free flow of information. So I'm optimistic. I don't think they will be successful, but we have to be alert. And the only way they can't be successful if we give it our attention and fight it as best as we can by spreading the information as wide as we can.
You bring up good points. Technology always the double-edged sword. If they try to use it against us, there are people who will find ways to use it against them as well, which is exactly what this free internet media is all about. But also, you bring up the point that it was the mass mobilization that happened around things like SOPA and PIPA that made the blockage of that legislation possible because of the mass awareness. It's one of the few issues. 14 years of occupation of Afghanistan, 1 million dead Iraqis, all these things don't matter to people, but talk about censoring the internet and people get up in arms. How about in Canada? Is this one of those touchstone issues that people care about in that degree?
Not enough. The problem in Canada is that not enough people are really aware that this is even an issue in the first place. So I think in our case, awareness is absolutely key. I put out a video about this back in 2011, ranting and raving and screaming to people, we got to do something about this. And I didn't get very much of a response about that at all. Now that it's more prominent and it's in the news and it's in the mainstream, people are starting to pay a little bit more attention. If they had paid attention back in 2011, perhaps we wouldn't be here now. So I really think awareness is key at this point. So some of the things we have to continue to do are things like we're doing right now. Put this information out there. Let people know that their rights are being taken away from them online, and unless they do something about it, nothing's going to change.
Also, the old phrase "use it or lose it" comes to mind because, again, it's one of those things that it is a muscle, and the more you flex it, the stronger it becomes. And in that regard, thinking of all of the ways that this technology can be used and is sorely underutilized by a lot of the public out there. Obviously, citizen media like We Are Change, like Press for Truth, like hopefully the Corbett Report are ways that anyone out there, literally in the audience who is listening to this, who can make a video, who can do a podcast, who can put out a video, or who can even share this information with others, is doing something to help in this regard. And also, we've got to keep using the internet for what it's for, which is spreading of freedom and truth, and cat videos if you want, but make sure that there's a bit of freedom and truth in there. All right, Luke, any final thoughts on this issue?
You said it perfectly. The internet and technology and information is like a muscle. If we don't use it, we're going to become weak, pathetic little slime bags. But if we use it, we empower ourselves, nothing is impossible. The future of society at large is within our hands. They're trying to take away this amazing moment in history that we never had before, but they won't be successful unless we stand up for our rights and be vocal about it.
Dan, any words of encouragement for Canadians out there teetering on the fence?
Now is the time to get involved. If you're not excited about getting into exposing these issues, now is the time. I mean, things are ramping up like exponentially. So I just encourage you, if you've never done this before, if you're just getting into this, dive in head first and start making changes. Go online, get a YouTube channel, start posting on Facebook, get a Twitter account, get this information out there. Whatever you can do, just dive head in.
And my Japanese brothers and sisters, you're at the forefront of a lot of this censorship as well, so please follow this advice and start getting the word out about these incredible issues. This is James Corbett in Acapulco, Mexico, with Luke Rudkowski of We Are Change and Dan Dix of Press for Truth.